Well, good morning, everybody. Bob Allen sitting in for Peter Godinez today in another segment of Good Morning Oxnard. And I hope it's not too dark, but this is the first day that we actually have some clouds out. And in this segment, we want to welcome George Miller from Citizens Journal. And George, I have to say that we've been getting such kudos about this segment, from people who are watching it and saying, it's a nice thing to be able to hear what's going on at City Council, in timely fashion. So I just want to give you the support that whatever's needed, we want to try and work together with you.
Well, thank you. It's actually been a very productive relationship because Bob has actually helped me quite a bit and mentored me to meet a lot of people in the city and here and in Port Hueneme since I started working with him in July. And as some of you know who are viewers, Citizens Journal is only a little over a year old. We started this out as a civics project because we saw some shortcomings in the local media to be charitable, and we thought we'd try a more people-oriented approach, and it's certainly working very well so far. And we have to thank you for
it's collaboration.
It is collaboration. That's the name of the game.
And that's what the future really
Right,
is.
yeah. And by the way, you can find us on citizensjournal.us on the net or Citizens Journal Ventura County on Facebook. And soon maybe to be on the new public access TV channel, which I'll be talking about later. But Bob always thinks I'm a little too serious, and he wants me to introduce some lighter stuff too, so I'll start out with that.
Okay.
Congressman Ramirez announced last night at City Council that the rabies clinic on the weekend was very successful, $6 rabies shots. I'm here to tell you that no citizens or pets were infected with rabies during the event, so it was very successful. Also, KADY and Citizens Journal have been covering the election quite a bit. KADY has distinguished itself through its technique of interviewing candidates in two phases. The first phase is who are they, their background and all that kind of stuff. And the second is what are some of the issues, what would they do if elected. You can find that on kadytv.net. And we also link all of those broadcasts on Citizens Journal as well.
And we also, basically, anywhere you go on kdtv.net, you'll see a little link for Citizens Journal.
And vice versa, by the way. Right. Although we have recommendations for candidates, we don't talk about them on the air because it's a news program. What I do urge you to do is go on and watch the videos and read the reports of the debates, which are written as objectively as humanly possible. There's been at least a half a dozen debates. I think we have 4 of them in video form now on the web for you to access. You should make up your own mind. You should not let editors tell you what to vote for, who to vote for.
Or science.
Right, really. The second thing, Bob kind of telegraphed my thing in advance. Last night, after well over a year of struggle, a bidder for the public access TV channel, Channel 25, which has been inactive for how long now?
5 years.
5 years. 6 years, right? 6 years. And we had a false start about 3 years ago. Another party won, and they just weren't competent. They weren't able to pull it together. Nothing ever happened. They couldn't easily cancel the contract. But finally, the contract expired, and they put out a bid. 3 companies bid. 1 dropped out. And then last night, the results were announced. They hired a panel of experts, an anonymous panel of experts, by the way, which is another matter, to evaluate the proposals. And 1 dropped out, as I mentioned. 1 scored 30 points on a score of 100. The winner scored 68 points on a scale of 100. That's a new group called OMAC, which is the Oxnard Media Access Channel. And it's a group of local people. This is very local. They're basically good old boys, that people who attend all the city council meetings, know what's going on, are involved in the community very heavily, and they will take over the channel. And they will make it available to anybody that has decent content that's not obscene, that's not completely crazy, and it'll run on Channel 25. And also a stress was made by City Council that Spanish language programming needs to be offered as well, because as Congressman Ramirez said, approximately 1/3 of the Latino population in Oxnard it's not their first language for English, so they want to provide that too. So we'll see what happens. It should be very interesting. We intend to have these programs on Channel 25 as well, so you'll be able to get it there in addition to on the net at kadytv.net as available right now. On a less optimistic and positive note, there was another demonstration against, quote, police brutality last week in Oxnard. It was discussed at the city council meeting last night, although it was not on the agenda. Enough people brought it up, and Police Chief Williams spoke about it too, and she lamented the fact that there were people who were carrying very inflammatory signs, screaming out death threats to police and things like that, making accusations. So she encouraged anyone that has a legitimate complaint to bring it to the city for vetting. There are a couple outstanding things, we don't know if they're true or not. They have indicated a willingness to talk about, to anyone that has a problem. Another interesting thing, minor, for over 2 years, the local residents have been trying to get a bathroom built in Thompson Park in Oxnard. You would think that's a pretty simple thing. You would think it's not that expensive, but believe it or not, it was almost $500,000 initially. People suggested that they look into prefab bathrooms, and Mr. Henderson, head of the Parks Department, did exactly that, and he presented his proposal last night. Now here's the interesting thing. A portable bathroom only costs $134,000, but by the time you meet all of the regulations, engineering, inspections, everything else, which I believe is $337,000. So we will have a new $337,000 bathroom. Probably.
We might be in the wrong business.
We might be in the wrong business. Right. I was amazed to see all the requirements and things that have to be done. And I really wonder if all this is truly necessary. And some of these fees are fees that Oxnard is paying to itself. So maybe that's a net zero, I don't know. That's how it is. So we'll have that. And that will be used as a model for others throughout the city as well. So we have it now. We have a $1 million city council chamber room and a $350,000 bathroom. Where do we go from here? Okay. Another interesting thing. I'm a water guy. I live down the harbor, and I'm pleased to see that the dredge finally arrived and started digging sand out this week.
They had a little false start at the press conference.
A little false start at the press conference. Yeah, I saw that. But it was originally supposed to start on October 1st. Here's the deal. 50 years or so ago, when they set up Port Hueneme in its current, 60 years, Port Hueneme in its current configuration, what that does is it breaks up the flow of sand down the coast, which is pushed by natural currents. So they set up Channel Highlands Harbor breakwaters and jetties to catch that sand to keep it from getting into Port Hueneme. The problem is every couple of years that sand has to be dug out, otherwise it causes real problems. First of all, it builds up sand that's so wide that waterfront property in Oxnard is not even waterfront property anymore. It's like must be like 150 yards now from the beach. The second thing is it starves Port Hueneme for sand. Port Hueneme right now is run out of sand. The waves are breaking up and almost getting up on the road, destroying the beach. And that sand will now be replaced over the next couple of months of dredging to the tune of about 2 million cubic yards of sand. So your property will be worth something again. I'm glad to hear.
Part of the thing, and is the fact, a little bit of the history, and we've done enough stories on this, is that originally the Channel Islands Harbor basically was created by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers because the port of Hueneme during World War II was taken over by the Navy for defensive purposes, and basically if they didn't, the sand would have been coming down naturally and filling up the harbor. So the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers created Channel Islands Harbor, and the agreement was that they would replenish the sand that is caught in the sand trap and bring it over. And for the last 2.5 years, due to sequestration or lack of funding, that has not taken place. And the thing that really hit me, we had done a really nice interview with Cynthia Hunt, the new city manager at Port Hueneme, and it was in her office with a map, an overhead map behind her. And I never realized it during the interview, but as I was watching it, that whole beach that's right over her left shoulder is just not there anymore.
God, right, exactly.
So it's been somewhat critical, and it was really great to see. I met some of the people from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers yesterday, so at least that process is
actually, there was dredging 2 years ago, but the problem is they had to cut it way back, I think, to 600,000 cubic yards, so it was nowhere near enough, and that's really what resulted in the starvation of sand from our beautiful Wainini Beach. A lot of people don't know it, but that money is all federal funded. It comes from money that's collected for the use of the other ports, the commercial ports around the country. Some of that's distributed to us. And I found it kind of comical that the press conference was held and all these politicians were up there taking credit for the dredging.
Yeah.
Guess what? It's already mandated.
Let me ask you this, and this is for our viewing audience and maybe even the candidates in Oxnard, since this is a Good Morning Oxnard show. What are the one or two major things confronting the residents of Oxnard in this upcoming election?
Well, there's a couple of things. Some are not that visible. The number one issue that has the most public visibility is public safety. Oxnard is a fairly high crime area because it's got a lot of people coming in from different areas, and people come out of prison, work with these programs and stuff like that, and it has quite a bit of gang activity. That's probably the number one issue that all of the city council candidates have acknowledged. It's a frequent topic of resident speakers at the city council meetings. The second one, without a doubt, is water. You know, we're in the midst of a serious drought. Oxnard's pretty dry, doesn't have much of a water supply anyway. Now what's interesting is that Oxnard only imports 40% of its water, which is actually less than Thousand Oaks, which is almost 100%. The reason is Oxnard has the river that runs through it and also manages the groundwater in such a way as it takes most of its water from the ground. The problem is that groundwater has dropped scaringly. It's really an awful lot in the last few years. So we've really been living on borrowed water, and we have to come up with some alternate sources of water. The drought has just made it worse. The reservoirs are down to 1/3 of capacity right now. So Oxnard's been responding with things like the GREAT program and all that, by recycling water to use for secondary purposes such as irrigation and industrial use, which will greatly reduce the demand for water that's for people that need potable drinking water. There's also been some talk, I just discussed with City Manager Greg Nyhoff last week, the possibility of looking into distilling water again through a desalination process, because it used to look really expensive. It doesn't anymore now that the new water producing projects are costing up to $2,000 per acre foot, which is 3 times what it used to be. So distilling water doesn't look so bad anymore. Countries like Israel do it now, and they get almost all of their water from that. You know, maybe we should look into that, not be dependent upon the vagaries of politicians in Sacramento and whether water runs down from the Sierra and the mountains.
You know, in the history in Santa Barbara, the last major drought in the 80s, they built a desalinization plant. Mm-hmm. Then as water started flowing down, they shut it down and never maintained it. So they're having difficulty even getting it started again. Mm-hmm. But the answer is, you're absolutely right. With all of the, what I say, water that we have that has salt in it, for us not as a community to be taking advantage of that at this time.
We've got an unlimited supply out there in the Pacific. Now, a lot of people don't know we already have a desalinization plant that's not used to desalinize seawater. It's used to desalinize brackish groundwater that picks up minerals and things like that. And that plant was out of operation for 2 years, and after Nyhoff came into office, somehow it got fixed and is now running again.
Well, and that's what's good as you get new management.
Right. I just have one more item. Do I have time? Okay.
Wait a second. This is public television the way it was meant to be. How much more time would you like?
I thought I had a budget of 11 minutes. Okay, the last item I thought was really important also. You know, Oxnard does have a chronic homelessness problem, as does Ventura. And Peggy Rivera, the homeless commissioner, has talked briefly on that numerous times. Something really important happened last night. We've basically combined the homeless programs between Ventura and Oxnard. Peter Brown, who's a highly respected expert on homelessness, is now also our homelessness guy. We're splitting the expense 50-50 with Ventura. He came last night to talk to us, and here's what's really funny. Carmen Ramirez, who's been a strong backer of this program, asked, he said, as our new official, will you be honest with us? And she got more than she bargained for. I don't know if I can quote him exactly, but he said something to the effect that churches and other charitable organizations are making the problem worse and are merely enabling the homeless lifestyle by financing. And he suggests that we should focus more on eliminating the root causes of homelessness, getting people back on their feet and productive again, and the second track is to address the mentally ill problem, because a lot of people on the street are mentally ill and they just can't do anything else. Now, if that wasn't enough, a longtime Gadfly Dan Lecklatter got up. Dan is a neighborhood watch guy. He says, you know, I patrol all the time, and I see these people all the time. The interesting thing I found is a lot of them are there by choice, not because they're pushed on the street. And if there are people on the street by choice and not bothering anyone, why not just leave them the heck alone instead? Which really added to the equation of interest for last night's meeting. So on that note, I'll say thank you for having me here today. Any other questions?
Been good working with you today.
Likewise.
Peter, we miss you.
Okay.
Come on back.